those people that might be in line for a windfall, what should they think about doing? Well, I'm no expert, but if it were me, I'd probably consider a few of the following things if I didn't have a mortgage at this stage, because paying down your mortgage, always a good thing. Being debt free on your house, you could argue the toss. There's probably other investments that are better return, sexier, but if you can get to a point as quickly as possible where you say you're mortgage free, you've developed a significant foundation or a significant asset base there that's going to stand you in good stead. I don't care what you're doing. So, but that probably doesn't apply to us at the moment, and so I'll base this on what I'd do if I didn't have a mortgage or two. So first of all, one of the first things I do is make sure I've cleared any credit card debt. Credit card debt is evil, and the reason I say that is it's money for old rope for the banks, which makes me uncomfortable because banks everywhere make a shed load of money. They buy their money at 3%. Worst case scenario, well, they probably buy their money at the moment at, if they can get it, less than 1%. They lend it out at 3%, and they're making cream on top. So when it comes to credit cards, it's probably their highest margin product, you would have thought. So they're getting their money at whatever, they're lending it out, getting 15 to 25% for it. It's just money that creeps up on you. You don't notice it. You've got minimum payments, you've got your interest payment. I just think it's generally bad. So if you can avoid using a credit card, or if you use a credit card to accrue loyalty points or something like that, make sure you have a direct debit in place that clears not just a set amount, but the full balance of that credit card every month. And I understand that some people use their credit card for major purchases, things they can't afford outright. Well, a couple of approaches. One, that's fine if you can pay it off over a set period of time and don't accrue any interest. Or how about just not buying anything until you can afford it? How about that as a novelty? That might be kind of quirky or kind of cool to try as a notion, but that's just me. But paying off any credit card debt, no point paying an expensive personal loan unless you absolutely have to. There are actually products coming to the market now, and I know of one online only bank that have basically got a product that will enable you, or launching a product that will enable you to turn credit card debts into a personal loan, which in terms of a sort of inclusive or a morally responsible way of doing it actually is pretty good and sort of flies in the face of how you'd expect a bank to typically behave. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. I've got to say, I think that's forward thinking, and I think that's investor friendly, and I think it's consumer conscious and all the rest of it, and it helps people, and in turn they'll get loyalty from those customers, or those customers will be loyal to that institution hopefully and repay the good faith and the decency that they've shown in them. So that's pretty cool. But clear any credit card debt. It's unnecessary. You definitely don't want a balance of 1,000 to 2,000 ticking along. Payments are massive, but over the course of a year, interest can be $200 to $500 on that, I would have thought. It's just money that you don't need to spend. It's money wasted. It's a holiday somewhere. It's money you could be investing on yourself. It's a weekend course. It's a diploma. It's a certification in something else. It's just mind-boggling. And look, I was guilty as the next person of doing that, but credit card debt, got to go. First thing we clear with our tax refund. Next up would probably be to start laying the foundations of some kind of asset base. So you're looking to make some kind of investment. You're looking to basically create some kind of, almost, I'd call it a sort of money machine, or something that will just grow over time, something that can be the foundations of you making hopefully regular investments into. And if you want to get maximum returns, you could do that with a savings account, but the rates of return are pretty poxy at the moment. So I'd strongly recommend looking at some kind of exposure to the stock market, in some way, shape or form, and probably the easiest or the lowest risk way of doing that is some kind of index-linked fund. Now, the reason I say that, and for those people that don't know what that is, that's a fund that is passively managed, so it just tracks the main stock market in a particular location. Can track a range of different things, but essentially it would be something that in the UK would track the FTSE 100. So it would be a fund that is made up of or weighted around the major companies in that index that make up the greatest weighting in that FTSE 100 index. So you get all the exposure to the biggest companies. Typically that would be the big banks. In America it would be the big technology companies. And what that means is your fund is just going to track the performance of that market. And why this is a good investment, it sounds pretty boring, but actually over time the index has outperformed pretty much any fund manager whatsoever. Take away maybe some hedge fund managers and things like that who produce crazy returns for their clients and make massive bets on this, that and the other, like the Brexit. And index-linked funds, the other good thing about them though is that they're generally really low cost because they're not actively managed. You don't get any of the bloated fees that you sometimes get with other fund managers or things like that. And the way you can check this out, or check your exposure to this, because pretty much everyone's a victim. If you've got a superannuation fund, if you've got a pension fund, it's likely to be being managed by a fund manager, and they may be doing a good or a bad job. The markets are the markets, you can't really control that. The one thing that you can control is the fees that you're paying, the fees and charges that you're paying. So an index-linked fund is great because whereas a fund manager will typically charge 1.5% to 3%, possibly even a share of profits for managing your funds. So just for the privilege of them managing your money and sticking it in their fund, they're going to charge you 3.5% of funds under management. And that can start to add up. Now where that becomes a particular problem is if your fund returns 7%, but they're taking 3% in fees, that only leaves you with 4%. Now over the course of a 10 or 20 or 25 year or 30 year investment time frame, which generally is what's required for these kind of investments, that's going to be problematic because not only are you compounding your returns, which in these cases are pretty low anyway at 6 or 7%, but you're also compounding the charges. So as your fund grows, you're paying more charges every year. And 3% might not seem much on your $5,000 that you invest today, but when your fund's worth $250,000, $1 million, $2 million, 3% per annum becomes a fairly chunky amount. You do that for 20 years and you're looking at a fucking big number in terms of the fees that you're paying. And what people have started to look at, or what people have started to cotton on to, is the fact that you can often get just as good a return, if not a better return, from an index, which is being passively managed and is charging you 0.75 or 0.5%. And therefore, the return could be the same. The two funds could be returning you 7%, but I'm paying 0.75% and you're paying 3.5% per year. Over 10, 15, 20 years, you're probably going to end up with $1 million more than it. You might end up with $1 million. Great. I might end up with $2 million. The funds have performed the same. You've paid $1 million in fucking charges. Now, I don't care how much money you got. That's going to hurt. So, I urge you to do this today, because if you have a superannuation fund, if you have a pension fund, you are paying an annual management fee, most probably, 99% of the time, you're paying an annual management fee for them to manage your funds. If they're not doing a good job, if that fund manager is not doing a good job, you've got to sack them and move to a fund that doesn't charge you as much. And believe me, when you try and move out of that fund, the anointed fund manager or the person who's sent to administer your super fund, who apparently has your best interests at heart, you try telling her or him that you want to go out of that fund where you're paying 2.3% and you want to move to one that's paying 0.75%. And they'll say, oh yeah, but the returns tend to be better the more you pay and you get what you pay for and all of that. And then you see that the fund that's charging